Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we can have a look at the latest from the live radar, run through the UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days. So it's going to be pretty bone dry for most regions, with those temperatures really climbing over the next few days. We could be reaching low to even mid-20s in a few isolated spots throughout this working week. So it's a really stunning week as we do come to the close of May and of meteorological spring. As we have a look at the longer range as well, look at the GFS, GM, ECWF and the ensembles, it's looking likely that that sort of pattern does continue. We are seeing a bit of a wobble perhaps from the GFS and its ensembles today, around that day 9 or day 10 point from the end of May into the first few days of June, perhaps for some slightly cooler air and maybe some slightly more unstable air as well, so more showers. But it is only a wobble and only a few runs are going for it, which does include the operation run. Still, the overall theme is for warm and dry conditions to prevail, and the ECWF does keep that going. And of course, ECWF is generally a more highly regarded model, so I definitely do think it will be, or the latest is definitely something a bit warmer and dry continuing as we do head into June, but it's just seeing a bit of a wobble that we'll have to explore in a little bit more detail when we do have a look at those longer range charts in the second half of the video. So do remember, if you enjoy the videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. Now this recording is coming out a little bit later than I would usually do, probably be around 7 PM. Unfortunately, just how the day is transcribed, it's coming out a bit later, unfortunately. So hopefully you do get around to watching this video. But at the moment, as of around sort of 6 PM, we are pretty much bone dry. A small patch of rain through parts of northern England, but most areas are bone dry and very warm. You can see across Europe a bit more instability within that warmer air. We are seeing thunderstorms break out, but for the British Isles, absolutely nothing. And bone dry and very warm, especially through England and Wales. As of 6 PM, still high teens, if not touching 20 degrees. Along the east coast, slightly cooler, a bit of an easterly flow, but still very pleasant, and most areas very warm and dry. If you have a look at the UKV and have a look at the precipitation and temperature over the next 5 days, you can see, we can just run through this precipitation chart very quickly, because it's going to be very minimal precipitation. It could be a bit of thick cloud through tomorrow and maybe a few drips and drabs of rain across northern Scotland. Most areas very dry and very warm, and that continues into Wednesday, into Thursday, and all the way towards the end of the week into Friday and Saturday. Bone dry and very warm. The air masses will be oscillating a little bit. You can see it's fairly warm at the moment, but slightly cooler air mass could drift in over this evening for northern areas, but continuing to stay fairly warm, fairly sort of average to above average upper air temperatures. And those upper air temperatures could peak into Wednesday, where we could see those temperatures really climb to perhaps the mid-20s in a few spots. And it continues to remain fairly warm all the way to the weekend, with those upper air temperatures around that 5 to 8 degree mark. Again, the normal sort of equation I do for the upper air temperatures to surface temperatures is normally add about 15 degrees to the upper air temperatures for those surface temperatures. So looking at this, around 5 to 8 degrees at 850 HPA, you'd expect those top temperatures to be around the 20 to 23 degree mark. So we'll see what that is showing for later in the week in a second. I got that sort of 15 degree addition really only does work in the summer. So whenever you are looking at these upper air charts, I'd always, as I said, in those sort of summer months, you can include May in there, May, June, July, August, and even a bit into September. Normally add about 15 degrees. So as you look at the max temperatures, you can see through this afternoon, temperatures did climb in many regions to the high teens, if not 20 degrees, and even seeing 22 or 23 degrees appear down towards southwest England. Again, an isolated area of very warm air. Most areas are said mid to high teens, a bit of an easterly flow holding those temperatures down. As we do head into Tuesday, another widely quite warm day, perhaps not quite as hitting the tip-top temperatures. Said that slightly cooler air mass moving in overnight could hold it down, but still widely 17 to 20 degrees. With bone dry conditions, it'll still feel fairly warm out there. Again, those temperatures aren't exceptional. 17 to 20 is not exceptional at all, but with very dry conditions, it really will feel like it's quite a bit warmer. As we do progress into Wednesday, we've got that slightly warmer air mass starting to move in, and you can see those temperatures are already a lot higher at midday, and by 3 PM, widely 20 to 22 degrees. So not quite as high for the top temperature as it was today, but it could correct near the time. But it is widely a much warmer day, with most of England and Wales seeing somewhere around that 20 to 22 degree mark. Northern and western areas suffering a little bit more, as that's the direction of the air mass moving in. A bit of thicker cloud perhaps there, but still everywhere it's dry day and very warm in most places. Into Thursday, slightly cooler, but again, peak temperatures in the southwest around that 22, 23 degrees, and generally high teens or low 20s, and that's the same as we head into Friday. Tip-top temperatures again around that 20 to 23 degree mark. So stunning summer-like conditions to prevail for most of this working week. Could be slightly cooler in a few regions, bit cloud here or there, but most areas are bone dry and very warm as we do head through the last full week of May. So we now have a look at the longer range, go to the GFS, and have a look what that's showing over the course of the next few weeks. It did have a bit of a wobble today that we'll explore now. You can see the high pressure continue to build in and continue to dominate, but as we head towards the last couple of days of May, it actually brings in a bit of a northerly flow. Slightly more unsettled conditions, a bit of lower pressure, a bit of an upper trough, and generally cooler conditions. Nothing spectacular, but slightly cooler. High pressure to topple back in, it does keep us fairly dry. Still not expect to see much precipitation with that, but it might not be quite as warm because of that cooler air mass. And right at 384 hours, it actually pulls a real spanner in the works with a big cut-off low. Cold air will be wrapped up in this, and we'll be seeing some very heavy rain within this as well, or a lot of rain spiralling around that low. Again, if we look at the accumulated precipitation, it was minimal from yesterday's GFS, and is likely to be pretty minimal up until around 300 hours here. It is very minimal for most of the British Isles, especially before that northerly wind comes in 7 days' time. But it's when that low moves in, that cut-off low, then it really picks up in the last 24 or 48 hours. Not many of the other runs are going for this sort of scenario. That northerly flow, cooler air mass, and then a cut-off low developing. And it's all in sort of the day 8 to day 10 and beyond time frame. So it's in the uncertain time frame, and we'll just have to keep an eye on what does develop for that. Again, I wouldn't say it's the most likely scenario, but we can't rule it out. Just many of the other runs are not going for it. If you do have a look at the GM, see if that's showing something a little bit more settled. Again, high pressure building in and continuing to dominate. Could see a brief attempt at that colder air to move in, but it stays in Scandinavia. And right towards day 10, we stay fairly warm and fairly dry. A bit more of a brisk easterly wind, so it could cool those temperatures down in the east a bit more. Look at the 2 meter temperatures here by midday, about 17 or 18 degrees. So not quite as warm as you'd want, but it's because of that brisk easterly wind. The upper air temperature is not quite as warm. And then you can see add 15 degrees, those sort of 2 to 4 degree upper air temperatures, and you're getting towards that mid to high teens point. So not really too exceptional with that easterly flow, but still would be fairly warm. Nothing what the GFS is going for. If I look at the ECMWF, see what that is showing. Again, high pressure continues to dominate, and try to see perhaps a slight northerly flow, maybe around that day 7 to day 10 point, but staying towards our east and up towards day 10, it is warm and dry. It does develop a bit of cut-off low, but it's out towards Eastern Europe, and Denmark and Scandinavia, not impacting the UK at all here. We'd stay warm and dry, upper temperatures generally around average, and yeah, looking really quite nice. Again, put in the United Kingdom look, and you'd expect to see temperatures again in the mid to high teens. Again, best further northwards, as we do pull in a bit of an easterly flow coming in off the North Sea. So the GM and the ECMWF, perhaps not quite as warm around that day 7 to day 10 point, not quite as warm as they were showing the last couple of days, but still nothing that bad, and still generally warm and dry compared to that GFS run, which does go pretty miserable and horrible. Again, doesn't have a lot of support, the GFS run, but it is a scenario that we can't completely disregard. If you look at the ensembles now, if we do start on the GFS, the latest 6 o'clock run, you can see generally average over the next couple of weeks for those upper air temperatures, briefly up and down, and again, that will change those temperatures day by day. Some days 22, 23, other days 18, 19, like tomorrow, for example. But you can see around that day 10 point, that dip around the 30th to the 1st. And you see the operational run there, it's one of the coldest runs, going down to -5 in a couple of regions. Along the east coast, and it does go fairly unsettled beyond that. But most still keep us around average, and most are fairly dry. More precipitation spikes here than we've seen recently, but still nothing too crazy at all. Still, majority of runs average to above average, and still dry. So a bit of a wobble. but nothing too substantial, nothing I'll be worried about too much at this stage. The 2 weeks temperatures still look fairly encouraging, around those mid to high teens, if not touching 20 degrees. Again, fairly decent as we do head into the longer term. Just got to keep an eye out, really, on those last few days of May and early June. But this is only the GFS ensembles. If we have a look at the ECMWF ensembles, you can see they are much more bullish on something much more sustained in terms of warmer, dry weather. There's not too many less precipitation spikes, but there are 50 ensemble members here. So in terms of proportion, there are many fewer ECMWF runs going for rainfall. If you look at proportionally compared to the 50 ensemble members, and the operational run's much warmer as well, and the general ensemble mean for temperature is well above average. It could 3 to 5 degrees above average for the foreseeable future from around Friday, Saturday onwards. So ECMWF a lot more bullish today on keeping us sustained warm and dry conditions all the way to the start, or the first full week really, of June. So a bit of a battle here between the GFS and GM. GFS definitely wobbling a bit, but most of the GFS runs still fairly warm, and all of the ECMWF runs here, bar from a few outliers, are still very warm and dry. So I still do think that is the most likely scenario. We're never ever going to get sort of a forecast be 100% for a couple weeks out. There's always going to be wobbles, and hopefully this is just a little wobble within the GFS and a few ensemble members, and hopefully in tomorrow's update we'll be able to say that they have completely reverted back to something a bit warmer and drier, but we will just have to see. Cannot discount them at this stage, and I really do hope that we see that cut-off low stay well away, as that would be something quite miserable to start meteorological summer, but only really just hinting at today, so we will just have to see what happens with it tomorrow. So anyway, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.